The one that got away, written by Simi Loki. The walls were yellow, not a pleasant or uniform yellow. It almost looked like nicotine stains if tobacco was still legal. It was a dingy yellow, a yellow that was earned through years of abuse, neglect, and unpaid cleaning staff. Strange that the OGJ would choose to put its headquarters here, he mused. Musgrave, a synthesized voice chirped from the intercom. Daryl Hightower Musgrave, please report to room 1421B. He stood up and glanced at the sign posted next to the hallway. 1421 should be to the left, according to the sign. For a moment, he debated turning around and bolting for the door. He went left instead. The hallway was long and featured what appeared to be an endless series of identical-looking doors. Wooden doors with brass plates screwed in at eye level with an identifying number. He followed the row downwards. 1633, 1631, 1599. It would be a while before he got there. Musgrave, the voice responded. Daryl Hightower Musgrave, please report to room 1421-B. He picked up the pace. No sense in leaving the auditor waiting. Delaying would not help his case. He was practically jogging when he saw the door for 1421 come into view. Without hesitating, he pushed the door inwards. No automatics here. The doors were strictly old-school tech. He found himself in an anteroom, and two doors branching off at angles. One was simply labeled A, and the other B. He knocked on the door marked B. Yes, the impatient voice said from the other side. Come in, Mr. Musgrave. He entered. The voice, he found, belonged to a woman who appeared to be in her mid-50s, and at a guess at least a head and a half shorter than Daryl's own 179 centimeters. Despite her diminutive stature, the woman's managed to project an aura of harsh determination that was nearly palpable. Daryl found himself wanting to hold his breath for fear of insulting her by accidentally consuming an oxygen molecule she might have already silently claimed. It wasn't just her height. In every way, the woman was almost completely his opposite. Dark skin where he was spared, grey curly hair where his was straight and brown, frowning where he was trying to fix her with a goofy, innocent grin. It didn't work. Sit down, she said, and pointed at the chair on the opposite side of the desk. He slid down, and she followed his movement on her own side of the desk. As she found her seat, she steepled her hands in front of her and locked eyes with Daryl. Should have run after all, he realized. At least then he'd have a chance of being shot in the back, rather than being forced to see it coming the whole way. You seem to be laboring under the false impression of the purpose of this office, the auditor said at last. Or, at least, that it's the only reasonable explanation for your most recent activities. Daryl stammered. I think I should explain myself. She cut him off. Tell me, Mr. Musgrave, she said, what do you presume the Office of Deception Integration to be, He grimaced. She just stared at him coolly. He sighed in resignation. To present a unified story to the galactic senses on the scope and ability of the human species, he recited. Her eyebrows shot upwards. Line 3 from the mission statement, she said. I am impressed. So you are familiar with our charter? Yes, he admitted. He was a star pilot. Of course, he was familiar. Part of his daily routine aboard the ship was to memorize the latest OGJ briefings before interacting with either passengers or crew. FDL communications were still rudimentary and, at least in theory, while the ship was in null space, the ship's hypercom should be the only way those aboard the ship should be able to reach updated news from the outside world. As long as he controlled the sole communications turret, he was, in theory, always one step ahead of those aboard the ship. Still, it didn't pay to take chances. The tech outlets always swore that a portable comm was theoretically possible. It would be just their luck that for someone to sneak a prototype communicator aboard a human-crewed ship. Timely briefings save lives. Also said the old star pilot mantra. Then you are aware of the inherent and unique challenges this office faces, she went on. It wasn't a question, but he decided to treat it like one anyway. Yes, he agreed. She nodded and tapped a recessed button on the desk. A one-way hologram flashed into being between them, permitting her to read the display while giving him an unobstructed view of her face. To the best of our knowledge, she added, humans are the only species capable of deceit. In the entire known universe, we are the only ones who invent stories, the only ones who lie. You are aware of this. He ground his teeth together in frustration. Still, he managed to keep this from his voice and said, yes. The auditor appeared to detect his frustration anyway, as she banished her display and met his gaze once more. As a species, we are outnumbered 60 million to 1, she said. Every other species out there has the advantage of us. They outnumber us. They are more technologically advanced, and many are stronger, smarter, and more durable than us. The only thing that is keeping our precious little species from being annihilated is our heretofore unrecognized and, more importantly, unchallenged ability for guile. You do understand this? Yes, but so, she pressed on, when our office is presented with some new lie as a human has made in public forum, we, and by we I mean not just this office, but the entire united Earth and indeed the human race, are forced to do what we can to add credence to this bit of blatherskite, to spread the lies amongst the various humans away from the homeworld, so that we are in agreement about our abilities and, more to the point, we never contradict each other. Do you recognize the difficulty in achieving such a goal? Yes, but if you do recognize it, she interrupted yet again, as she once more summoned her display, then why would you declare, and I do believe I am directly quoting you when I say this, that you have been flying in close proximity to the galactic core and release all the absorbed radiation as a singular nuclear blast? Darrell grinned sheepishly. I thought, he confessed, at last, that the bit about the galactic core run might explain why, we've never mentioned that we can go nuclear before. Mr. Musgrave, the auditor said as she leaned back in her chair, strange as it may sound, that is not the detail that I find most troubling. Perhaps you might instead enlighten me as to why you elected to proclaim such an outlandish balderdash. Darrell winced. You have to understand the context, he stammered. I am listening, she said. Sam and I run this two-man operation, he explained. Sam is the, security officer. Sam Tolbot, she agreed. I have his profile and statements on file. Please do not waste my time with unnecessary details. Darrell's throat felt dry. He swallowed once. Nothing seemed to happen. He tried again. With a cough, he seemed to finally unlock his voice once more. Right, he said. Well, anyway, he's part of my business model because, someone once boasted that a ship with a human security crew have never been taken over by pirates. It was the auditor's turn to answer. Yes, she agreed. A boast made in the presence of alcohol during our early first contact days. Pray, continue. Well, he continued, after licking his lips, we mostly do cargo runs, occasionally do passengers. Not often. My ship's a Jayhawk-class frigate. Not a lot of luxury accommodations, but the shop comes by for a passenger run to the Chronic system. They wanted our ship because we were humans. For the safety guarantee? The author asked. That, he said, and the fact that we could offer a partition between the crew and passenger areas. The auditor looked confused. I'm sorry, she said. I understand the need for atmospheric quarantining, but Krillixictans breathe comparable atmo. Why did they want the petition? Because, Darrell explained slowly, it wasn't just a Krillixictan. It was the oligarch's own daughter, Mia Lee. Oh, the auditor said simply. She kept her face neutral, but Darrell thought he saw a hint of color drain away. Feeling encouraged, he pressed onwards. Standard profile is to offer female passengers isolated quarters, anyway, due to the, rumor about human lovers. He left out the part about the boast, which claimed that humans were such excellent lovers that they were now limited themselves to their own kind out of guilt, as in their earlier wilder days they inadvertently led to the extinction of 4 other races, as the women of said species refused to have anything to do with their own males. Her second grimace confirmed that it was better off left unsaid. Again, she said, inebriation was a factor. This is why the United Earth limits consumption of alcohol in mixed settings. I get that, Darrell said. But the point is that since we had the arrangement to keep the oligarch's heir unseen, as required by their custom, they actually were seeking a human transport and were willing to pay handsomely to secure it. Well, I appreciate your business acumen. That does not explain your boasting, the auditor warned. I'm getting to that, he promised. We plotted a standard 6-jump null space trip to Krulix. When we surfaced at point 4, that's when we found the ambush waiting. Ambush pirates, he said. But not just pirates. Bungadoon warships were scattered among them as well. There were at least 40 ships in close proximity. So close, in fact, that the null space sensors wouldn't let me jump even if I didn't have to do the full cooldown cycle. The Bungadoons had convinced the pirates to aid them in the political beef with the Krulix. They hoped to overwhelm us with numbers. They weren't interested in boarding, so I couldn't threaten to breathe fire. They couldn't threaten to jinx their offspring, as the Bungadoons reproduce by self-cannibalize while bubbling. They consider their offspring to be themselves reborn. I couldn't even threaten to do the unexplained Khufu de Boingo attack, because even though we never explained what it was, too many humans have made a big show of eyeing people before threatening, and many consider it requiring a line of sight. As I was encircled, I couldn't look everywhere at once. The air was about to die, and the Bungadoons were willing to perish to accomplish it. So I improvised. By threatening to vomit false nuclear fire, she prompted. Not exactly, Darrell complained. I mean, yeah, I made a choking noise like I was going to vomit it up, but that was just for dramatic tension. I told them that I could project it outwards and fry all of them without damaging my own ship. They were willing to die to send a message, but not to just die. I told them that it would be equivalent to a 100 megaton blast. They backed up to the outskirts of that range. My proximity alarms died, and I vented Atmo to the cooling rods. That got the temp down subcritical, and I was able to do a mini jump away from them. I did a blind jump, so not even we knew exactly where we were jumping. I had to do a full breakdown to repair the drive, but I got the air to a planet without additional incident, and only 3 days late. Darrell sat back and crossed his arms over his chest defiantly. He hoped he projected more confidence than he actually felt. So, the auditor concluded, you felt expressing a new outlandish lie was the best way to preserve existing outlandish lies. Darrell considered that. Not the way I would have phrased it, he said. But, yeah, something like that. The auditor sighed in a surprisingly casual manner, leaned forward and rubbed her hands over her eyes. Such a headache, she murmured. Why do you people insist on putting us in such situations? I'm sorry, Darrell offered. The auditor sat up and frowned again. You are in violation of UE Charter Provision 119, Section R, with Class 2 boasting, she said. However, I'm in agreement that there were some mitigating circumstances present, and your course of action, while regrettable, may not have been entirely unjustified. Darrell felt a flutter of hope. Furthermore, she said, it does coincide neatly with our reluctance to travel near the core. We did not want to admit that the intense radiation was lethal to our species, and your lie presents a useful alternative for us to use. I can spin this, Mr. Musgrave. So, Darrell asked, as he sat up straight, I'm off the hook? I did not say that, she corrected him. We still have much work to do. We have to doctor the flight records to show a core run for your ship that never existed. We also have to smuggle several nuclear devices out to be detonated in a place where the effects can be measured but not directly observed, so that we can prove you released your nuclear buildup at a later point. Furthermore, although we do not want to escalate the war between the Bungadoons and the Krulix, we do want to appear partial to either faction. We must tread carefully and diplomatically because of your actions. All in all, this is a problem that you've landed upon my desk, and it is still debatable whether the benefits outweigh the costs. Do you understand this? He let his arms fall to his side and looked away from her gaze. Yes, he said, and I'm sorry. Very well, she breathed. I will charge you with a Class 4 violation instead. Grounds for 90-day suspension of your pilot license. 90 days, he protested. I can't take that sort of hit. She raised an eyebrow. Did you not just make the claim that your last job paid handsomely? She asked. He threw his hands up in his surrender. Fine, he said. So I'm grounded for 3 months. Anything else? Yes, she said. There is a matter of community service, 10 hours of it. In fact, doing what? He asked suspiciously. Picking up litter along the Jovian helix? No, the auditor said with a shake of her head. Tell me, are you familiar with the Hestian choral group? Darrell's eyes widened. No, he protested. They are quite popular right now in certain circles, she said. If you agree to do the March 5th and 6th shows, that should just cover your requirements. No! Are you certain? She asked, voice steely. I can always change your violation to a Class 3. His license would be permanently suspended if she did that. He took in a deep breath and let it out slowly. Fine, he said. But, just for the record, those recorders hurt once they shove them up your ass. Yeah, better make us square. It does, she agreed, face finally breathing into a tight-lipped smile. Darrell felt the meeting was at an end and started to stand up. He froze. Out of curiosity, he asked, halfway out of his chair, was the boast that we could fart in perfect harmony to tune of the Hessian Global Anthem due to lots of alcohol and poor inhibitions? She agreed. I figured as much, he said, as he finished standing. Good day to you, Auditor, and to you, Mr. Musgrave. Then, without another word, she stabbed another button on her desk. Send in the next one, she ordered the desk. Darrell exited the office and began the long march back to the hallway. Donald Xavier Bester to room 1412B, a synthesized voice chanted as he walked. As he walked down the hallway, he found himself crossing paths with an unhappy-looking man carrying what appeared to be a cheap Halloween costume of a mermaid. It was just a couple beers, Donald muttered, as he was shoved his way past Darrell. Darrell decided maybe it was a good time to be grounded after all, and resumed his march down the hallway. He hummed the Hessian Global Anthem under his breath as he walked just to make sure that he could still remember the tune. End of story. I'd greatly like to thank our Tier 5 channel members, Caspar Arnholtz, John Creighton, Manatharia, 050, Dragzoon WRE, and Elijah Silvercross. Thank you very much.